good day, good afternoon, good night. How you doing? This is MCM and you're listening to You're Probably Right. Today we are going to have a serious conversation. Well, maybe not a serious conversation, but there's going to be a serious talk happening here. Now, of course, I'm only doing the talking, but just stay tuned. Hey, what's up? This is MCM, and you are listening to You're Probably Right. I thank you for coming out to my podcast, taking the time to listen to me. It's so nice that you're here. I welcome all of my listeners around the world. I appreciate you. Those who will be listening today for the first time, and those who will also be listening for the last time, I welcome you. Hopefully you can learn something from me. I'm just messing with you. There's lots of stuff that I have to say, but I'm not really sure how much I can really say. Which is one of the downfalls, I would say, about having a podcast is knowing when to hold your punches. I mean, not really to insinuate that I'm punching, but you understand what I'm saying. Sometimes I have a lot to say, but I'm not very good at being fake. And at the same time, I will say to you right now that this podcast and every other podcast that you've heard prior to this and in the future, but prior at this point, including this one, is done for entertainment purposes only. And this podcast does not represent anything else that I might do outside of this podcast. This podcast is a separate entity to itself, and it does not reflect anybody that I do business with in any other arena or any other area. I am not a doctor, and I do not profess to be a professor of anything. As usual, welcome to You're Probably Right podcast. Again, I am your host, MCM, and you're welcome at my house anytime. Okay, so now that I've got off one of my well-timed spiels, I did want to say, as I was saying, it is difficult to have a podcast because sometimes with somebody like me, I try to be as upfront and honest as possible. When I do see issues with certain things in society, or maybe the way that I've done things or other people have done things to me or around me, and I've observed and saw what happens to others when their behaviors are as such, I generally say what I think. I don't know why I took a sip of this Coke Zero just now. Coke, you guys gotta figure out some way to give me a sponsorship. Although I'm choking on your product. What I'm saying is sometimes when you have something to say, I believe people generally used to appreciate your point of view, your argument, or mine at least, and others when it didn't necessarily agree with theirs. And a lot of the time what would happen in the past is people would say, interesting. Either you're out of your mind, or you know what, I never looked at it that way before, and I might look at it a little bit like that, and a little bit from the way that I look at things, and meld the two things together and maybe come up with a better way of dealing with the situation in the future. But nowadays, what I'm finding is people are either on the left or on the right, or they don't know and they don't want to talk about it. And I'm seeing it more and more, whereas people just vilify you for having different ideas, which to me, growing up where I grew up in Toronto, of the parents that I grew up, who raised me, Jamaican parents, it just doesn't seem normal. Now, not to say that when I grew up, I had a lot of choice or there was a lot of dissension that could happen in my household or the church that I was going to, or even the school. that I was going to, or anything. Everything was pretty much regimented. Everything had its place, and there was a time for everything. And the difference is, though, so maybe it was like that, but in a different way. The difference is, before, people were up to having conversations. People were up to changing certain things if it made sense, or if you could prove it to them. But nowadays, what happens is everybody just has an idea. They're going along with a certain idea, and they hold to it no matter what, even if it doesn't make any sense. And that's one thing that I would say I definitely take issue with how society is being played out these days. Just seeing weird stuff. I'm seeing young people, activists, having issues with farming and the carbon print and this, that, and the other. And they're in grocery stores pouring milk on the floors. They're throwing whatever it is at like paintings. I think it was a Monet. I think I saw today, two young people threw some stuff at the painting that who knows how many thousands or millions or whatever it was worth. And then they stood there presenting that they've destroyed this and this because of whatever. It's like, I don't know about these protests but nowadays, but it seems like it's just going crazy. I don't know how it became that way, but for some reason, what happened in Minneapolis that day with George Floyd, it seems like the whole world is like flipped upside down on its ear. I will say, even though, as I usually say, I try not to timestamp my podcast so much, but it was a situation that happened a couple years back anyhow, and it happened on my birthday. But it was just a weird time, and ever since then, it's like everybody jumped on that bandwagon of BLM at that time to say that, police needed to be defunded. People need to look at the respect level of what Black people are dealing with in America and then in Canada and in Europe and all over. We're dealing with the UK, dealing with all kinds of racism and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden the arguments and the conversation changed to women's rights. Then it turned into intersectionalities and the LGBTQ plus 2, I think. I'm not even sure what that is right now, but it's just, everything is just on everything, and everybody has a right. Everybody is a culture that's being oppressed, and there's no difference between living this way and being Black and the people who are from here. Like, it's just everything's just melted into everything. And the point is, okay, sure, you think you have a right to hitch your trailer to let's say the Black wagon and whatever is going on that side of things. And you need your justice, you need your this, you need your that. Soon the focus switches and it's this. It's not Black men, it's Black women. Oh, it's not Black women. Now it's Black people who are trans, this, that, and the other. And it just, everything's all over the place, so nobody can figure out anything. And at the same time, who is suffering but the children and those who are already disenfranchised already? And I know that's a lot that I'm trying to unpack by saying that I like to say how I feel. And sometimes I'm concerned when I have a podcast and I may say something a little bit left or a little bit right, and someone might possibly take it the wrong way. And therefore, I'm on my podcast saying, this podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Why? Why am I putting that out there? Why am I trying to put disclaimers out there? Because you don't know if you're going to be canceled. And that's a real thing. And, if this podcast is today, this episode is about nothing else. It's about how much do we care if we're canceled? And what does cancellation of a person or an entity or a business mean? Does it mean that you'll never work again? Really? Does it mean that? Or does it just mean you're not going to be on Twitter, Meta, you're not going to be on Facebook, you're not going to make certain types of money if you're not connected to these things, which in most cases I feel that way. And, changing the topic a little bit, it reminds me of Brett Weinstein and his wife. And they were both university professors who basically stumbled on the YouTube scene, the Twitter scene, and they've been saying all kinds of things, which, to tell you the truth, Brett Weinstein was saying that he was shocked, or it seemed like he was shocked that he was demonetized off of YouTube. And I can honestly tell you, for at least a year now, while COVID was going on, the amount of things that him and his wife, Heather Hang, were saying, that's funny, were saying, I was like, how are these people still on? How are they not canceled? They've been fighting against the system and being whistleblowers all over the place, having all kinds of people being interviewed on their podcast, on YouTube, on Spotify, and wherever else they are. And I was always wondering, how are they still there? I was like, I was starting to feel like they were plants, and maybe they could be, but maybe they're not. But the whole point is why were they being able to say all kinds of stuff that other people have been canceled off? I remember that guy, I can't remember what his first name was, but it was Rose. And he was saying all kinds of stuff, talking about the system and talking about how things are changing and how, Big Brother is watching, and they're, the society and financial systems are being broken, shut down for purpose, and all these different things. And he was shut down quickly. Then Trump was shut down quickly. Then there was this other guy who used to be, I can't remember what his name is. He was a soccer player in the, I think the 70s and 80s. And he had all these ideas of things that he knew that nobody knew, and talking about the powers that be and the 1% that were controlling the world and trying to, basically depopulate the all countries of the world and do all kinds of things. And he was cut off of things. Then Trump was cut off of things, and it just kept going on, and people were being cut off here and there, and and it's just, the world has just gone loopy, it feels like. But I mean, back to Brett, and his wife Heather. I don't know how else they're making their money. But if you're telling me that two people that have PhDs cannot get jobs anywhere, I highly doubt it. Now, you may not be able to work at the same type of school that you were working before. You may have to back off of some of your initiatives or some of your statements or whatever it is a little bit, but you're not going to not be hired absolutely nowhere. I know people who have been charged with things, been put in jail, and come out and found jobs. And, and I'm not saying you should have to go through that, but then I look at them complaining on YouTube and saying, this has happened to us, we've been defunded. They still have commercials on our YouTube channel and on our YouTube videos that are still having lots of eyes on them. So therefore, YouTube's still making money off of our show, and the people who are still advertising on YouTube and are doing it on your show, they're still getting the benefit of your show being there and advertising to your customers, essentially. And I understand that. But the thing is, there's little people like me who this has been happening for years, but nobody was ever fighting for the little person, ever. I only heard one person, honestly, in all of these years that YouTube's been going on. I've been a YouTuber since 2007. Back when nobody was on YouTube and nobody had an iPhone. That's how short of a time it was. Hardly anybody had YouTube, and nobody had an iPhone. Matter of fact, when I got my first iPhone in 2007, you can check it if you want, Google it. Nobody had it, and I had, in the workplace that I was working with over 150 people, I had the first iPhone there. And anytime somebody saw me pick it up or they heard that I had an iPhone, they literally asked me to take it out of my pocket and look at it. That time. So that's the time when I had YouTube. And back when I was getting probably 12 subscribers every day. And that's just from a small channel. And eventually what happened is YouTube didn't like what I was doing. I was making mixes for workouts, and what happened is one song would start being flagged in my mixes, and people, and I understand that, I have these, even if I bought sets of music or downloaded by way of BitTorrents or whatever it was, just different torrents and stuff, and they made that illegal, so you couldn't get a whole pack files and mix it, whatever it is. But I was doing it for people who wanted music to work out with, back when it wasn't very common, back when there was only SoundCloud, and SoundCloud wasn't doing that type of thing. Now they have Mixcloud, where people do it up front and in everybody's face, and apparently it's okay on Mixcloud. But that's how my YouTube channel was growing. And then I moved off into interviews, and I had created a website, and then eventually all my YouTube videos were being flagged. It was a huge drop. What Brett also explained about his of people finding his videos or subscribing to the channel or whatever it is. I had this huge, ridiculous drop, and I took a picture of it. It was on, I think it was Social Blade, I think it was called, where you could go and find out, all the activity on a YouTube channel. And mine just dropped and flatlined, and that was like the end of my YouTube presence. YouTube actually closed because of a violation of copyrighted music on my channel, which, I mean, at the end of the day, of course, if I'm a singer and I'm putting my stuff out, I want to get paid. And if you put out my stuff too quickly for free or a part of a mix, I can understand that would affect somebody wanting to actually purchase it. At the same time, mixtapes were very common, and why people sometimes would buy people's CDs, it was because of their appearance on mixes. So it goes both ways. And in general cases, especially with mainstream hip hop and R&B and stuff like that, mixtapes and, people's music would be nowhere without the DJ. And the DJ has been very important, from the guys working in the radio stations. Of course, there was payolas back in the day, and I'm sure there still is. But the bottom line is, people need to hear your music, to like your music, to want to buy your music anyways. And what I'm saying is, my YouTube channel used to do that for artists, and I had people contacting me all over the world saying they loved the mixes, from Brazil to the United States to the UK. And then all of a sudden I had no presence anymore. And then I was basically just starting to get monetized, and that kind of threw a monkey wrench in it. And I've been reeling from that ever since. YouTube closed my channel. I wrote them an email. I complained. What they did was they gave me back my channel. And that channel is DJ Do at YouTube. And then I was basically, I would say, shadow banned. They took away I was a relatively small channel. I only had maybe around 1,000 or so. They took away all of my subscribers, even though they were legit subscribers. And I believe, and this was 2015, I think. And then I believe I was like shadow banned, even though there was no such real thing back then. I guess I was probably one of the first or the first group of people that happened to, whereas my channel just became unsearchable, unfindable. They gave me back the channel. They didn't give me back my subscribers. So whoever was subscribed to me before I don't think anybody ever came back. I had to do weird things to get my mixes back up, but there were different mixes, and the music wasn't that great anymore because I was limited, and eventually it just died. So whatever content that I was putting off differently died. I also have a couple other channels. I have one channel that has about 30 or so videos for children, for kids who are like new language learners and stuff. And that channel, it just gets a subscriber here and there every once in a while. Schools I know are using that YouTube channel, which is called Murray Ed. But at the same time, it's just something, it's like, that was like a labor of love. That was just something that I put out there because I wanted children to be able to learn the different nuances of core words when it comes to English. And that was kids that usually were like, I made it for children who were living with autism. And then obviously other kids who were English learners could also use them. And I'm happy that I created that content, but at the same time, hardly anybody ever sees it. You know, I have now, and sorry, I'm giving you a history of my social media. I have my podcast now, as you're listening, and that's gone okay. But at the same time, when it comes down to really getting to the nitty gritty, it's like, do I waste my time giving up the goods? Or is it just going to one day it's just going to bite me in the backside because I've said too much or I've named names? You know what I mean? It's humbling, to tell you the truth, that, we have the opportunity to have this platform to be able to leave a voice print into history that my children's children could potentially hear and listen to their grandfather or friends or family members or whoever, just be able to say something of worth and somebody might care one day. It's really cool that we have these platforms, but my issue is that the censoring of these people that make content and spend their time, their hard-earned time, sometimes money, to create content, and then everything is just censored or cut off because we're not speaking along the lines of the right narrative. So I have to a lot of time bridle my tongue on what I say, what I won't say. And I can say honestly, it's a little bothersome, to tell you the truth. So there's my 2 cents. Hold on a second. I was listening to something just now and it just got kind of shut down. Let's see. I want a little something. Strange. Oh, here we go. It's back up. Cool. All right. So let me see if there's anything else, because to tell you the truth, that was supposed to be on a topic on a different actual episode, but that episode actually never came out. And that's what I'm talking about. It's like, I think I said too much, and it's sad because that information was probably pretty pertinent to some people somewhere. And at the end of the day, when I make my podcast, I'm telling you, as you hear me speaking, just basically chalk it up to he's speaking to me. Because although I know that it's more than one person I'm speaking to out there, it's like I never know when I haven't said enough, or I haven't been clear enough, And I think about many things, like the Michaela school in London, England. I stumbled upon learning about that school. I stumbled upon the headmaster or the creator of the school, and I just thought it was really cool that I think her name is Catherine. What's her name again? Let's see. It's so ridiculous. If I can find it, Catherine Burbalsing. Well, yeah. And funny enough, I believe she possibly went to the same high school that I did, but maybe not. But the whole point is the school that they have created is offering a different type of education, which the different type is actually traditional education, where the students all face in one direction, not in the little pods where they face each other and try to team teach each other or partner up, and the teacher just kind of facilitates and walks around. No, the teacher is in front of the class, and the teacher tries to engage all of the children, like back in the olden days. They have strict rules about, running around in the hallways or talking in the hallways, or just strict rules, pretty much, in different ways. And I'm not going to get into it too deeply because I don't know everything about it, but I know that students do. There are such a thing as demerit points, where if you get 2 or 3 or whatever it is, you end up in a detention, which goes into a classroom, and it's just a detention classroom, and it's not like punitive it's not like, it's not to destroy the children, but it is to teach them respect. It is to teach them respect of rules. It is to teach the children that the time that they spend at school is valuable. It's to make children feel safe. And it is mostly to educate the children, which I believe they are doing. And it's in the inner city, and where students don't necessarily have all the structure that would be important for a child to be successful. They're putting that in place for students. And from what I'm hearing, the students are happy, the families are happy, the children are starting to succeed and going off to college or university and making themselves out to be something of success. And they are going to be an addition to society, a help to society, instead of holding society back or being a bother to society. And this affects, of course, my community all over the world, the diaspora of Africa, all over the place, who have many times traditionally been seen as difficult, rowdy, troublemakers, fighting and all kinds of stuff. And that's a whole other situation as to why things are that way, why most of the black homes are broken, or kids are coming from broken families, why they're all huddled into different projects and ghettos and public housing and all that stuff, and why the fathers are not able to stay and be a part of their family. That's a whole other problem. But I believe that the education system that they have created at the Michaela School makes sense. And I think that it would actually help if we had some type of school like that in Toronto. Now, I know there's the Afrocentric school, but I don't necessarily think, and this was my issue with things like black grad coaches and people who were just hired to work with the black families of school boards and stuff like that. I believe that there are other people, and they're not necessarily black, and people don't have to lie to say they're black. You go to the certain companies and people are saying all kinds of things, making all kinds of statements, and acting as if they're part of the black community, or they're saying, I'm part of the black community because my grandfather's father's sister's cousin from across the street was black, and therefore I'm black, and I have a black last name, or I married into blackness, or whatever it is. And you have all these people supposedly representing the black community who have nothing to do with the black community. And even if they have something to do with the black community, they are not oppressed, and they are not affected in the same way that a regular black person who's walking into a store or walking into a classroom would feel, because not even their skin or their hair would even say to anyone that they're black, if you understand what I mean. And there's different levels of blackness apparently, and there's all kinds of stuff. But the bottom line is, I think a school like that would help, whereas the school doesn't have to just be geared towards blackness or black kids, because not all black kids are dealing with the same struggles. But I believe that students who are living in horrible situations and need that structure should be able to go to these schools. And if they have to not necessarily crack the whip, I'm not saying they should be beating students in schools, but I believe that strictness in schools, nurturing in schools, help in schools, teaching children how to study, teaching children about time management, looking into what the children are presenting as their schoolwork, and making them feel safe and not feel like they're going to be bullied every day, can help a lot of students, any student. And I believe that the way that they're doing it from a level of teaching for the lower end and getting all of the kids who are supposedly the higher end and encapsulating them all into how you're teaching is a great thing. And on a different note, lately, again, I'm not going to say it, but Kanye West has been out and about. And, The biggest problem I see with that guy is his messages are so mixed up that nobody knows what he's saying. It's hard to tell if it's mental illness that really is the issue, or if he's just so brilliant that he's just pulling the wool over everyone's eyes and he's not really mentally ill. Because when you listen to him for more than just a little soundbite of 1 minute and 48 seconds or 4 minutes, but you listen to a whole interview, you realize that he says stuff that is very intelligent and very well thought through, and he pays attention to the other person when they are speaking. He obviously expects a certain level of respect, but the way that his ideas are put together, I believe a lot of them are very valid. But the problem, I would say, for the mainstream person, not media, but the average person, the average Joe, is that he speaks in parables. Parables. And we know somebody else who spoke in parables in history, if you know what I'm talking about. And when you're speaking in parables, the reason why you would normally do it is because you wanted certain people to understand very clearly what you were saying, and then you wanted it to miss others. Now, I can't say that anybody in their right mind is going to select him if he decides to go for president. I can't say that. I can't say that he's not too volatile for the job or acts too crazy and he could start a world war with some of his antics, because I can't say that he would dial it down. So I can't see anybody ever, not in the next 10 years, unless he totally changes his demeanor and he stays steady for a long time. But in 2024, he's done nothing to show anybody that he would be a good president. But what he has done is he has decided that if he's going to lose his deals with Adidas, if he's going to lose his dealings with Balenciaga, if he's going to be censored and taken off of Twitter, if he's going to have to buy his own social media network or site or whatever it is, Parler, or whatever it else is he's decided to do, the bottom line is he's willing to take the slap on the wrist or the kick in the butt to say what he thinks and to give people an alternate way of thinking. So he suggested that George Floyd didn't die because his neck was pressed by the guy Cheffin's knee, or all of his weight of his body, and he believes there was other things that were inside of his system. Sure, maybe not, probably not what everybody saw, but the bottom line is at least he planted a seed. And I think that was his whole point. All the tirades, all the Jewish people this and the Jewish people that, and all the stuff that he was saying, I honestly think he was there just planting seeds. And he was right about other stuff. Nobody ever talked irreverently about a president until he said George Bush doesn't care about black people. After that, it's been game on for everyone. And maybe, it seemed like he was apologizing for it when he was interviewed by Piers Morgan. But at the same time, you see that even someone like him, just a rapper, just a music producer at the time, now supposedly a fashion designer and a billionaire, just a couple misplaced words or a couple properly placed words can make a big difference in society. And a lot of time, the difference it makes is just to make you think. So whether his parables are the parables of a lunatic or a madman, at least he's doing something. And the thing that I think that our society nowadays is lacking is the opportunity for the average person to think for themselves. And I think that is so important. Before, people would just say to you, use your common sense. But now there is no common sense. What happened to common sense? People say now, started saying maybe 10 or so years ago that one thing we've realized is that common sense isn't actually really that common. And it's even if you have it now, you're not supposed to activate it. They've literally told people to shut off their common sense and come along for the ride and do what we say. And if you don't do what we say, you're canceled. So he may not be bending over backwards and opening his wallet, but I mean, he's trying something. I don't know what Bill Cosby did before he got himself into all the trouble that he got himself into. You hear little pieces here and there, but I mean, people who are worth building billions or hundreds of millions, when they drop money on something or do good in the world, especially with now Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, and all these different things, you would figure as fast as bad news travels with somebody like Kanye West or R. Kelly or Cosby or Mike Jackson or Mike Jordan or Mike Tyson, all the bad things that have happened in their lives, you would figure that also when they do amazing things on a large scale, if they do, you would think we would hear something about it as well. But we don't. And for the longest time, I can tell you, being a person of the diaspora of Africa, that it seems like it's been hunting season on black men, whether you were worth $1 billion or whether you're worth $1. First, it was destroying the families, and then it became destroying the rich people who were black and all that. You know, I used to say, and I've stopped somewhat, but someone like Drake, he's into the Jamaican culture, the black culture. Why hasn't he done more for society and given back? I don't see it, but I mean, I can't say that he isn't doing it. But the problem is nobody's hearing about it. So nobody's seemingly there to support or to copy what he does and make it a part of his life as well, or their life, in other words. And I'm just giving you a couple instances here. Like the black hair stores. That's right. The black hair stores. The cultural food places. Shoe stores. Just those 3 places. Now we could move on to cars and houses after that. But not everybody's going to be able to buy a car, and not everybody's going to be able to buy a house. But I can damn well tell you that everybody is going to buy shoes. Every black person in the black community is going to take care of their hair 100%, and everybody has to eat. And speaking from someone who, say, lives in the GTA in Ontario, Canada, the Greater Toronto Area, I can honestly tell you that when you go into a hair salon, well, not a hair salon, a hair store or hair product store or beauty supply store, that's the better, that's the better word. Which I'm going to go back to this for a second. I don't know if anybody noticed my last episode. I kept talking about a light socket, and what I meant to say was electrical outlet or outlet or electrical receptacle. But I kept saying light socket through the whole thing. That's the one bad thing. If there's no other bad thing about doing a podcast on your own, is that you could continue to make a mistake 50 times and there's no one there to correct you. But anyhow, yeah. So going back to the topic, or the point that I was making, no black people own these stores. And when they do own them, first, I can tell you that just from growing up in Toronto, that first it was brown people who owned them all. Now, people have seen brown hair. They know the difference between black and brown hair. As a matter of fact, if you are black and brown, then you are known to have good hair, everybody said, right? First, they were owned by mostly brown people. Now, yes, black people have one here and there. And usually I would say those stores probably have 200, 400 square foot of produce, possibly at most. And then the brown people would have some of those places where, as I said, most of their customers are black. And then you come now into the 2020s and so on and so forth, or I guess from say 2005. What you're finding is there are huge beauty supply stores owned by Chinese people. Now, I have no issue with them maybe having some of the market, but the fact that they've basically cornered the whole market. Are there no black hair product companies that actually sell to black people? And the funny thing is, if you look on YouTube or look on TikTok or you look on anywhere and you just type in black person arguing with Chinese beauty supply store owner, and you'll see it all over the place. The total disrespect. When you go in the stores, they don't know what you're talking about. They don't know what you need. Usually they have a couple lackeys in there who are black working for them, who never see a price list or never know where anything's coming from, and they might help you if they have time. But the bottom line is that it's totally been taken over by other cultures all the time. Black people's lives have been in other people's lives, other hands all the time. You have Michael Jordan, you have the shoes that he used to wear and the shoes that he has never worn, the whole Nike, which has basically been on his back, on his shoulders for pretty much the last 20 or 30 years. And most of the people, again, selling the shoes back to black people who care about them the most, because we tend to wear our wealth, even if mostly not much wealth, on our bodies. We wear it in our jewelry. We buy jewelry. Are you buying jewelry from black jewelers? No. But it's like, at what point are we going to stand up and say we need something different? And I don't really want to pick on all these things, but again, with the food, most of the time, people who own the West Indian shops in the Greater Toronto area are not black. And I'm saying, at what level do people get sick and say this is enough? And then you go to these superstars, and we don't have that many really, honestly, in Toronto or in Canada for that matter. But you have someone like Drake. He could open a whole fleet of stores, but it's probably maybe it's a bother for someone like him. I mean, maybe one of his people who are in his circle, or one of the people who are connected to OVO, why aren't they opening grocery store sized beauty supply stores? I don't get it. Like, maybe there has to be a reason, and I'm not saying that, say, someone like Drake owes me an explanation, but I'm saying, why aren't these things happening? Like, why hasn't Michael Jordan done something in that respect? Michael Jackson, who always had his hair permed, or Prince, who probably didn't need perm, why hasn't he done it? Why has Mike Tyson only gone into now selling marijuana to keep people numb and keep people's state of mind altered? You know what I mean? And it goes on from there. All of the basketball players, all of the football players, many of these people who are getting $99 million for 4 years, or $50 million for 4 years. Are you telling me these guys cannot, besides getting a restaurant or a strip club, you're telling me that these guys cannot afford to pool money together and do that even with other people in the same company? This is honestly a wake-up call to all entertainers, all black people who have come up in one way or one arena or another, and I would like to say to all of you, forget about the supercars that you could actually open a beauty supply shop, or you could maybe help somebody run a West Indian shop, or open a Nike or a footwear shop, or whatever it is. Put your vision in it and give back. What story have we heard that somebody who is doing that and not overpricing for their stuff like OVO? I probably would have bought an OVO shirt now if it didn't cost $200. You know, maybe I would wear some Supreme or whatever, you know, or some of the stuff that Kanye has bellyached on for all these years. Why are you guys not giving back? Who has given back that we know of? I probably saw 5 Starberry shoes in my lifetime. So we know that Stephon Marbury did that with his cheaper shoes, but they got stopped at some point. We know that Shaq did it. He sold his shoes through Walmart. And yes, people used to make jokes about Shaq's shoes, this, that, and the other, but he gave back. And he did make his money, but he gave back. They were still a decent shoe. And then who else do we know? Nipsey Hussle. You understand? Like, these people actually gave back. Now Nipsey hired people from the community. Shaq didn't, but he allowed his name to be used on shoes that were being sold at Walmart for a decent price where people could actually afford them. But what I'm saying is, more could be done. 5 football players could get together and open a chain of beauty supply places. You're seeing them with the amazingly properly braided hair or properly twisted dreadlocks. You're seeing them with amazing haircuts. Like, I'm just saying, please, this is a call out to any of you. And I know that I've strayed way off of education, which really wasn't my point. It was just that I wanted to say something, and hopefully someone out there is listening. I'm saying, please give back to the community as the Michaela School has done. And they're not even saying, I don't know that it is, like, I don't know that much about it, and I don't know that it is Afrocentric, but it just so happens that many of the people living in those type of communities are of African descent and will be benefited. And this is someone who wasn't a rich person. This wasn't a person who was making millions and millions of dollars or owns billions or is worth billions. Even if you only have 999 million or whatever the case is, the point is they're not worth that, but they were able to make a difference. Martin Luther King made a difference. He wasn't worth millions. Malcolm X, he did that. He did the same thing from a different side of things or a different point of view with a different religion that I'm not so fond of, to tell you the truth. But I mean, I'm not, Islamic phobic or whatever the case is. I don't have to believe in everything that you're doing, the way that you do it, or what belief system you're coming out of, but I'm saying you can do something. The reason why people listen to Bob Marley up until this day is because he was saying something. He's telling people to open their eyes, and it wasn't necessarily about wokeness. And yes, he might seem a little bit erratic, crazy, even if you want to call him, or different. But Kanye West is saying something. He's doing something. We don't know if it's gonna actually materialize into anything in the communities, but I know that the gospel music that he actually created for Christians or partway Christians or people who liked spiritual music did something. And it was for that community. He didn't have to. He could have still kept making 808s and heartbreaks. He could have still been making songs like Runaway or Stronger or Good Morning and all those things. People loved it from all cultures, all walks of life. But he decided to change. And you could say, oh, well, it was his mental state. That's why he changed. Whatever you want to say. The bottom line is he's out there now, and he is at least starting the conversation and making people think. So for that, I can say, honestly, even if he's caused a little bit of disruption, like somebody like Trump, who caused a lot of disruption and noise, made a lot of noise, but at least someone like Trump opened people's eyes into how much racism is really in the United States and around the world, or how many things could actually really get done by a president. You know? There were so many things. So anyways, I just wanted to talk a little bit about that stuff. I think I've said my piece. And, you know, when we're thinking about it and thinking about canceling someone like him because he misspoke, or maybe he spoke exactly what he wanted to say to ruffle some feathers, which obviously he did, even though most people have now put him as a lunatic and they're melting his shoes on camera that cost them probably $200-300, whatever it was. But hey, man, that's your choice. But think about it. You had a president in the United States who who clearly said how he deals with women is grab him by the, and you can finish it. Or you have a prime minister in Canada who obviously wore blackface or brownface. And you know what? These people kept their jobs. One hasn't been banned off Twitter and one was. So just think about when we're canceling people, what are we really doing? And another thing, my last statement, which it seems like what grinds my gears, but it's not really. I just happen to be speaking this way and a little passionate about the stuff. I'm thinking about the Ontario students struggling with math testing. Shocking. Before this de-streaming of math started, I said, and not that anybody's really listening to me, but I said, why is the first course that what we're doing is de-streaming math? Why didn't we start with de-streaming English first, something that all children speak? Now, yes, you'll have students in grade 10 reading at a grade 6 level. And, but like at least you speak English every day. You don't necessarily do math every day. So even if you've never read a book in your life, even if you've only done bare minimum, you speak English every day. Why not de-stream English first? Or science, maybe biology or something like that. But why go right to math where we know there's some people who have issues with numeracy and all kinds of mathematics? Why would we start there? So now what we have is it's been de-streamed and now students are struggling. And now they want to give $200. The Minister of Education wants to give $200 to each student so they can get a tutor. So you want to give me $200 so I can give to somebody else and they're going to show me a couple math solutions. Or I don't even know what it's for, honestly, but they should have de-streamed something else first. That's all I'm going to say. I never got it where someone who would be working towards a university degree or going to somewhere like MIT or going to UFT, and then there were students that were obviously going to a community college or one of the lesser known colleges, and we're going to take nothing close to having anything to do with math. Why would you just de-stream it? And how are those who are working at a higher level and how are those working at a really, really low level going to be sitting in the same classroom with one teacher and 21 or 22 other students in that same class, and both of them getting the help, the support, the education that they need? I have no idea. And on that note, I will close this one and I'll say thank you for listening. This has been another episode of You're Probably Right. I am MCM, aka DJ Dosey Do, and I thank you for listening. Take care. Hey, come check out You're Probably Right podcast. Society is getting more unpredictable every day, but at the same time, predictable in its unpredictability. Say that 4 times real fast. Come with me as I attempt to find clarity in all the fog while staying way outside the box and kicking the box way down the road with my size 12 dogs. I use the Bible, experience, education, fortune, misfortune, life's lessons, life's mistakes to sort through all the mess. I talk about news, God, God, self-help, sports, sickness, health, music, parenting, love, humbleness, hurt, pain, joy, and all the things that might make you say, I never thought of it that way. Hopefully, anyway. Also, I take a stab at answering tough and not so tough questions, and all the while understand that, listen, sometimes you end up in the hot seat and there's no thermostat. Well, that's how it is here. And because there's no topic, very few topics off the table, Torontonians will understand that Doug Ford reference there. Hopefully the podcast will be helpful and uplifting. And hey, maybe you'll find your own private Idaho here somewhere. Hope to see you soon.